Okay, now on the Windows side, we can go ahead and install Windows 11 as our main analyst workstation. We're going to be spending a lot of time analyzing attacks and indicators in Windows enterprise environments, because that's where most real world enterprise activity and the threats targeting it are going to take place. And so, with that in mind, let's walk through the process of setting up a fresh Windows 11 installation for our lab. If we head over to the Microsoft Evaluation Center, and I'll have this linked for reference, we can download the Windows 11 Enterprise Evaluation. And so Microsoft provides free downloads of a number of their products for evaluation purposes. And so that's what we can use here to set up our lab. On the Evaluation Center page, go down to where it says Get Started for Free. And we can click on where it says Download the ISO Windows 11 Enterprise. Now be sure to select the Standard Enterprise Edition rather than the LTSC or the Long-Term Servicing Channel option, since we want to have a full feature set for a lab environment. And so when we click on here, that's going to take us over to a registration page. And so in order to get access to download the ISO, we do need to fill in some information here. But fortunately, you can really submit whatever you want here. And so you don't necessarily have to give your actual details, but you do sort of have to fill something in for each input. And so I'm going to go ahead and put in whatever information I want here, just so I can go ahead and proceed. And so once we fill that out, we can click on Download Now, where it's going to move us over to the actual download page and ask us which version or language of the software that we want to download. And so I'm just going to select the 64-bit English United States version, and that's going to kick off the download immediately there. And so this is about, as you can see here, a 5 gigabyte download. And so just give it some time again and let it run. And once it's complete, we'll be able to load it up into our hypervisor and create a new VM with the ISO mounted. And so there we go. It looks like the download completed. We now have the ISO file on our system. And so again, from here, the process really just depends on what hypervisor you're using. You can always just easily look up the documentation of how to create a VM from an ISO image, depending on, again, what software you're using here. But in this case, using VirtualBox, it's just as simple as going over to my home screen here and clicking on the new icon to create a new virtual machine. And so we just need to supply a name for our VM, and so I'm just going to call it SOC 201-Windows. You can see the VM folder here where it's going to be stored, so I'm just going to leave that as default. For the ISO image here, again, I need to go in here and select that ISO image for the Windows system that I downloaded. And so let me just go to Downloads here and find that ISO that I just grabbed from the Microsoft website. You can see here that's going to pre-populate some information for us, like the operating system edition, the version. That's all looking good. Make sure that you uncheck where it says proceed with unattended installation. We want to do an interactive installation here. We don't have a auto-configure file that we can load in. And typically the unattended installation settings here with VirtualBox don't seem to work that well for some reason, or even with VMware I find. But anyways, we'll just uncheck that so we can run through the installation ourselves. And if we open up the Specify Virtual Hardware, this is where we can select how many resources we want to allocate for this VM. And so by default, it's going to give this Windows system 4 gigabytes of memory, which is more or less required for Windows systems, but I would recommend at least bumping this up to 8. I'm actually not going to be able to do that because on the current system I'm using, I'm actually virtualizing this, so I don't actually have access to my full set of RAM in my system, so I'm going to leave it at 6. But again, I would recommend at least doubling it. Same with the processors. And so this is going to be our main analyst machine here, so we want to have the best experience and performance out of it that we can. And under the virtual hard disk options here, it's going to default to 80 gigabytes, which is good. I think anywhere between 80 to 100 should be enough for our use case. And so we can set that there. And also we can leave pre-allocate full size unchecked here just to treat it as a dynamic disk. And so it's not going to pre-allocate that entire storage space immediately. Our virtual hard disk is sort of going to grow over time as we fill it up, which is more ideal. And so with that, we should be good to go. And so I'm just going to click on Finish here. And we now have our Windows machine created, and we can see it nicely next to our Ubuntu machine here. And so to start it up, again, I'm just going to click on the green start icon here and kick off that VM so we can install the operating system. And when we start up our VM here, we're going to want to press any key so we can boot up from that ISO image. And that will take us over to this Windows 11 setup wizard. And so it's just as simple as going through these different options here. And so we can select our language and time and currency format, our keyboard sort of layout and input method. From here, from the setup option, we can choose to install Windows 11. and then we can say, I agree here, click on next. It'll show us the sort of license agreement, which you can read through. From here, we can select the location to install Windows 11. We currently just have a single unallocated disk here, so we can just hit next. And with that, we're ready to install. And so I'll just click on install here. And this is going to take a little bit. Like with many things here, our system might restart a few times as it goes through the different options here. And so as always, just give it some patience. And once we return, we can continue on with the installation process. It might even, as you can see here, take us through a few different installation screens. And so again, patience is key. All right, and eventually, once that's complete, we should be met with this final installation menu here, where again, it's going to ask us our country or region, and we can just go through the different prompts here. It's relatively straightforward. So same with the keyboard layout. If we want to add a secondary keyboard layout, it's going to go ahead and check for some updates now, so this might take another moment. And once again, our system might restart at this stage as well. Yeah, there we go. So again, it's a very iterative process here to get Windows up and running. All right, and eventually it'll ask us to set up an account here. And so we probably don't want to set up a Microsoft account and link it to our lab machine. Microsoft gets very annoying about this kind of thing. And so what we can usually do is click on sign-in options here and click on domain join instead. And so that's what I'll do. And from here, it's just going to ask us to set up a name or a username here to sign in instead of using an online account. And so in this case, I'm just going to call my username TCM and hit next. For the password, I'm just going to use the ever so secure password of password and confirm that. And then it's going to ask us to set up some security questions. And so again, you can be as thorough as you like here in setting these up. These are just going to help you recover your password if you ever need to. But again, this is a lab machine, right? It's not going into production here. It's going to ask us to choose some privacy settings here, and so I always like to just turn all of these additional tracking features off. No, thank you. And we should pretty much be done here. Windows might go ahead and check for updates again at this stage, and so we just need to download those and install them before we can continue. All right, and so finally, eventually, we'll be met with this login screen here. And so if you made it this far, congratulations, I guess. You've made it through the Windows installation process. So I'm just going to sign in here with my password, and we should be brought right to the desktop. All right, and there we go, we're in. And so once we're here, one of the first things I like to do is to set up the guest editions. Right, and so if you're using VirtualBox as your hypervisor, feel free to do the same here. It's really going to improve our user experience. In VMware, for example, I think there's the VMware Tools package that you can load in as well. But with guest editions installed, we're going to get a much smoother experience. We'll be able to resize our screens. We'll be able to go in full screen and have things like our shared clipboard and shared folders between our host and the VM. It's just really a beneficial quality of life improvement that I think is worth doing here. And so to install guest editions, it's quite simple on Windows. I'm just going to go over to Devices here in my VirtualBox menu and go down to Insert Guest Edition CD Image. And once we do that, we might not see any activity, but if I were to open up the File Explorer here and just full screen this, we should see that we have a CD drive inserted into our PC, right? So if I just expand this a little bit, we can see we have this new drive appended on our system. In fact, if I go to this PC, we can see it mounted right here as a CD drive under the D drive called VirtualBox Guest Editions. And so if I hop into here, all I need to do is just run the VBox Windows Editions executable. And so I'm just going to double click to run that. And then when I get this user account control prompt, I'm just going to select yes. And that's going to kick off this Oracle VirtualBox Guest Editions setup wizard, right? And so we just need to go through the menus here. I'm just going to keep everything on default, but we can change where we want to save this, for instance. We can select what components we want to install, but I'm just going to go ahead and click install there, and it's going to kick everything off that we need. You might see the screen flash a little bit, the resolution change maybe, but once we're at the end here, it's going to ask us to reboot. So those changes can take effect. So I'll just click finish there to reboot the system. And once we're back, we should have guest editions fully installed. Once we're back, I can just log into my system account here. And from here, what I can do is go up to the View tab and click on Full Screen Mode. And it's going to give us a little prompt here. I can click on Switch, and we're now in the full screen experience. And so when you restart the system after you have Guest Editions installed, it can sometimes take a couple minutes for the actual service to kick off. And so if the full screen doesn't work right away, just give it some time and maybe try again. But looks like we're in now, and what I can also do is go down to Devices here and turn on different features like the shared clipboard to bidirectional. So if I were to just open up a notepad, for instance, I can type something in like hello world, and then go ahead and copy this. And you won't be able to see this, but I can in fact paste this over onto my host. And to prove it, what I could do is paste something back into the VM here. It works. So there we go. Same kind of thing with shared folders as well. And so if you want to turn on different features like the shared folders and get a shared folder between your host and guest operating systems, or things like drag and drop, and so you can drag files into your VM. Sometimes that works better than other times, but your mileage may vary here. The shared clipboard is crucial in my opinion, though. And with all of this in place so far, our Windows VM has been successfully installed, and we can now continue on with our configuration process.